Good evening. This is your professor. I'm going to go over kind of the nuts and bolts of this theory to practice paper. One of the biggest things that I'm kind of looking at is simplicity, but again, simplicity in terms of being selective, if that makes sense. One of the biggest things that I'm looking at is, are you able to share your insight, not so much writing a huge paper. Again, you're going to have that chance later on, but my outlook within this first portion or this first assignment is primarily to be selective to the point where you're whittling down your theory to practice paper in a way where I want you to be able to defend it and share your insight. But at the same time, I want the paper to be well honed to the point where you're able to share it, but not so much droning on and on about the various elements here and there. But one of the biggest things is I guess the best way to look at it is, say for example, you're doing a presentation. And when you're doing a presentation, I'm one of the individuals in the audience. And as I'm in the audience, I'm asking you questions. You're sharing your insight, but I want to know, as a person of the community, why you have this insight, and that's what you're trying to defend. And I guess that's the best way I can look at it is, I want you to be, that's the reason why I want it to be well honed. I don't want it to be one of those night before kind of assignments. I want it to be well thought out. I want it to be selective. I want you to be able to look at your articles, and I want it to have quality articles in terms of, again, they have to be scholarly articles. I don't want .com websites or anything else. And I'll continue onwards. So I'll kind of break it down as we're continuing onwards. So, what is a theory to practice paper, you may ask? One, it's an implementation of theoretical knowledge that can be integrated into actual practice in the field. The reason why I say that is, many of you will be going onwards. Many of you will be using your degrees in various locations. So within that, I want to make sure that as you're going along, not only are you just learning the information as knowledge, but I want you to also be able to say, yes, I have the applied wisdom. I know how to implement this, and this in this given scenario, utilizing these various theoretical works. So, in order to think through helping people and processes in the criminal justice system, you will write a short 2-page paper. Again, this short 2-page paper, bear in mind that it must be 2 pages of written work. Again, the abstract, the title page, and the references don't go within that 2 pages. Just keep that in mind. The 2 pages have to be simply 2 pages. That's what I'm only looking at. All work must be related in some way to the improvement of the learning and development of adult learners. Your work should be aimed at a problem or an issue in the field of law and psychology, and should offer the potential for improving practice in the field. The project should be appropriate for a professional audience that is interested but may or may not be fully informed on the topic and related literature. You are expected to draw on and reference the relevant literature in the field, including theory, research, and exemplary practice. This paper should be seen as an opportunity to demonstrate your outlook regarding a specified theory in relation to its response to an issue you may see. You'll be using specific literature about your topic to demonstrate your understanding of the problem and your proposed solution. So, by defend. One, add additional scholarly support to back your outlook. Do not simply state because I said so or because I am Diné. And it's one of the biggest things I've come across time and time again. There's always students that simply say, well, it's because I'm Diné. I said, that's great, that's awesome. But if you're working with community members, they're simply going to say, you know what, I'm Diné too, and I want more. So again, that's one of the things is, don't pick an answer. You're going to defend your answer. So the formatting. Again, the body of written work of the applying theory to practice paper should be 2 pages. Remember, the title, abstract, and the reference page do not count in the body of the paper. All I'm asking for is 2 scholarly references that need to be applied to this paper. Again, scholarly references, meaning they must come from a legitimate journal. They must not be Popular Science. They must not be Navajo Times. They must not be any of those things. They have to be actual journals. And I think you should already know how to go about finding journals and everything else. Either do a Google Scholar search, or simply go through your Diné College library formatting, or not formatting, but your library search engine. Again, this needs to be a scholarly resource. These need to be scholarly resource articles. So the format, double space, 1-inch margin, 12-point font, Times New Roman, number of the pages in the margin, upper right hand corner, 2 pages maximum of written work. I cannot state that enough. It has to be 2 pages, only 2 pages. I know some students are simply looking at it from the angle of, well, I can write more. That's awesome. I don't want you to write more. You'll write more within the next assignment. This one, I need you to whittle it down. I know that's one of the things is, you're coming from the angle of, I have all these great ideas. I said, yes, that's amazing. That's awesome. But within this exercise, I want to see if you can break down all the other areas initially and hone in on one given theory and utilize that given theory. Again, that's one of the things you're also learning to do, is learning to break down everything. Because a lot of times we're trying to expound on all these different information, but now I'm having you go in the opposite direction and kind of break it down to a more smaller, succinct manner. So this is not a work in fantasy or wonderment, but rather a focus on what you can write and offer. Again, this is what a page looks like of written work. So on your left, it's right there. On your right, this is what half a page looks like of written work. This is not what I want, but rather I want 2 whole pages of written work. So the one on the left, 1 page, and then another similar page to that. Alrighty, so this one's kind of pretty simple. Don't be a hero and add more than 2 pages of writing. I've had students kind of go over even a sentence, or they'll go over 2 or 3 paragraphs into another page. All I want is 2 very simplistic pages. I call them simplistic, but you're probably going to spend a lot of time trying to write this out. But again, that's where you're going to spend a lot of time trying to figure out what needs to be taken out, what needs to be applied, what will bring the point across of my writing. Again, if it's less than 2 pages, even if it's a sentence less than 2 pages, you'll get points deducted. If it's more than 2 pages, even if it's a sentence or 2 over the page mark, or over the 2-page mark, you will lose points. So again, this is where you're having to really apply a lot of your insights. This is where you're having to really be very succinct. And I've had students struggle with this paper because, again, this is very different. This is a very different writing exercise. One, I'm trying to make sure that you can share your insights in a very succinct manner. I've had students kind of really struggle on this, and the reason why is they want to write more. And that's where I kind of reiterate time and time again that when you're writing this exercise, or when you're doing this exercise, you want to bring the point across very quickly. But at the same time, you want to hook the reader, but you also want to make sure that you're sharing all the insights that you need to convey your message and try to convince an individual utilizing scholarly efforts. Because a lot of times when we argue or when we share our opinions, we're sharing our own personal outlooks. And so this exercise kind of allows you to go that route, but one of the biggest features is the fact that you're going to have to utilize scholarly research to kind of back up your claims, to back up why you feel this way, why you feel that way. And so that's one of the things is I stress a lot of students, don't try to be a hero. Don't try to go over, don't try to go under. Just simply stick within that 2-page mark of written work. I've had students kind of initially they'll try to write more. Again, this is not a term paper. This is not one of those. This is I would say it's a very simplistic exercise, but again, it's rudimentary in its application, but it's also needed when you're working in the field. So within that, I kind of leave it up to that, and I hope you guys stay within that mark. So page 1, how should it look? So this is the first page. Again, you're going to have that outlook. Make sure you have a title. I've had students that simply put title. You will get points deducted for just simply putting title. Come up with a title. Be unique. You're all learning to be unique. You're all learning to, and again, most of you, again, all of you are unique. But again, one of the biggest things is I want you to be able to share your insight, and I want you to be able to come up with a good, awesome title. So then you're going to have your student name, which is you, Diné College. Your course name, what is the course name? Your instructor name, so just simply put Jeremiah Barber. Date assignment is due, so that's going to be due, I think it's coming up soon. So look at your syllabus. I did send out a reminder. So that's primarily page 1. So for your title, please be original. Make sure that you actually have an actual title to your paper. Don't just put research paper or 325 paper or again, this is yours. You want it to be unique. You want to make sure that you're shining in terms of, you want to make sure that you're proffering an initial presentation of your work so that you're able to share it, if that makes sense. So initially what you're trying to do is you're trying to hook the reader as well. If I come across a paper that simply just says research paper, does that really spark my interest? No, I'm really not going to want to read it. And a lot of times students are like, well, I don't know if anybody wants to read my work anyway. Well, initially what happens is when you're writing a lot of these papers and when you start moving higher and higher up, when you're writing your master's or you're working on your doctorate, stuff like that, you're going to come across individuals who are needing your research or they're needing your insights and everything else, and that's where the originality kind of comes in. In addition to that, again, when you put the institution name, make sure it's Diné College with that little, how would you call it? A little tiny, not squiggly, but that little, oh gosh, my mind went blank. But make sure it has that little symbol on top of the E in Diné College. So again, one of the things that I would try to emphasize is the fact that this is not Dine College. We're not a culinary institute. So that's one of the things is a lot of students kind of, they'll miss that point or they'll miss that initial element. So that's where you want to make sure that you're being very mindful of that. So again, that's kind of one of the things I kind of reiterate time and time again. So your name. It's one of those things where I've had students submit their work and there's no name to it. It'll have my name on it, which is great. I'm glad you have your instructor's name on it. But if it has no name on it, I am going to email you back and say, where's your name? It's one of those things. It's a very simple application. Just make sure you have your name on it. Check your work before you submit it. That's one of the biggest things is you want to make sure that you're checking your work. But in addition to that, you want to make sure that you have your name on it. And I know a lot of students are looking at it from the angle of, that's a very simplistic thing. Yes, it is. But I've seen students still submit their work and does not have their name on it. Again, I will call you on it and say, hey, what's going on? So again, please put your name in your title page. It helps to know who wrote the paper. And that's one of the biggest things is you want to make sure that I want to make sure that I know who I'm initially giving points to. So again, that does help. Page 2 is your abstract. This kind of breaks down your abstract. Again, your abstract should typically be no more than 250 words. You're not writing a whole new book again. You're just simply going with 250 words. Then you have the keywords, what things I need to look for, everything else. Again, the abstract is simply a concise summary of the key points of your research. So you're primarily just looking at things that stood out to you. Again, that's one of the things you're looking at is what things stood out to you, what things came about, what things did you feel like were more interesting than others, what things did you find in the research that you felt, hey, this is what initially stood out to me, and that's what I'm putting in my abstract. So, the body of writing and what it should contain. Again, the body of writing should begin a new page. So this is going to be page 3. Subsequent information should be on the body of writing, description of the problem of your paper, our project addresses and why it's important, what you already know about the problem, in other words, what things you found, that would be the literature review, a description of the approach to the problem you will use and why this might be a good choice based upon the literature, how you would plan to assess the solution you propose, and how you will have or would enact your intervention in the community, whether it be small contributions or a large contribution. Again, that's what I'm looking at. I'm looking at saying, okay, how can you apply this theory? How can you apply this theoretical knowledge within the community? And then your findings, your results, if any, implications of future recommendations for policy, practice, and or future research. So, last one, your reference page. Make sure it's amazing. Make sure you're following all the formats. Again, I cannot stress this enough. You have your APA formatting, PowerPoint. Look it over. Make sure you're following all of that. Make sure you have all the main key points in it. Make sure it's a hanging indent. And I noticed that some of you guys are using the format through Word. I would urge you to move away from that and simply type it out as such without using the little extra tools, because what's happening is with those tools, it's not properly formatting according to how it needs to be done. So that's one of the things I'm always having to write back to you a lot of times. So again, it's there. You have the APA formatting PowerPoint. Look at it, please. I cannot stress that enough. But again, in addition to that, if you're using quotes within your paper, try not to use quotes. I'm trying to really get you away from using quotes and try to really get you to the utilization of paraphrasing. Because again, quotes will take up a lot of your paper. And quotes are only utilized if, say for example, that given outlook cannot be stated any other way. But a lot of times, if you can paraphrase it, great. Make sure you use in-text citation. I cannot stress that enough. Again, by this time, you're now looking at your reference page. By then, it should be page 5. All right, so if you guys have any questions, any concerns, again, reach out to me. I am available. You can reach me by email. You can reach me by phone. Within that, you have no excuses because, again, I am available to you. You just got to reach out to me. But bear in mind that the assignment is looming. It is getting nearer and nearer. I don't want you to lose out on points. Again, if you submit it late, it will not be accepted. Bear that in mind. The reason why I say that is because the assignment had been open for the past, I believe, 2 weeks now. So it kind of gives you that time to kind of look at it, glean over it, and kind of get yourself ready for it. And even within that, you have a whole week of no discussion questions. You're primarily reading. So within that, you're primarily focused. Your overall focus should be on this theory to practice paper. So again, if you have any questions, reach out to me. I'm available. You know how to contact me. Have an awesome night. Be amazing. Be awesome. And be safe.